Welcome to the No Name Podcast, sponsored by Texsource. Here's your host, Ryan Bolin and Mike Hoey.
What's going on, guys? Ryan here with another podcast with Mike Hoey. Still working on the names again. Right now, we're still working on what the print.
Or what the screen print, right?
What the screen print.
Yeah.
We got another guest with us today, a special guest, a really good one, who knows everything about everything in inks. Today with us is Max with Rutland, or Avient, if you want to call it. Avient or Union, all the above, kind of. So,
mostly working with Texsource with the Rutland Union, the Avient Specialty Inks, the Aquarius, and the Libra Silicone products. So,
in Union.
Yeah, I said in Union as well. If I didn't say Union.
Yep.
Yes.
Union. But Mike's, he's been in the industry for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He's been with, you've been with, I'm going to call it Avient. You've been with them for how long?
I'll be with the total years, it will be 30 years in September this year.
It's a long time. It's strictly inks. I mean, testing, labs, all the above.
Yeah, I think Kenneth's book would probably put you in as like the guy with the most knowledge when it comes to ink. So if you've ever had Max in your shop, then you know.
Which I'm sure people who listen to this, who will eventually listen to this, and more that we get, if you put his face on the cover of this little snapshot, that they're going to know, oh, it's Max. Everybody knows Max.
Yeah, in the industry for sure.
Yeah. But we want to talk about some of the specialty inks today, some of the different brands you guys have that's already out, but some of the ones that a lot of people are probably scared of, which is silicone inks, water-based inks, that people kind of run away from those, that they're designed for specific garments, but they're good inks to have in your shop if it's possible. So we want to kind of talk about some of those inks today, and maybe some new stuff that Avient's coming out with as well, and just get some of your knowledge for the podcast. But silicone inks, just a real quick thing. We printed this a couple of weeks ago or last week, so it's silicone. It was my first time trying to print silicone. It's on 100% cotton, but we built it up. We flash print it a couple of times, and
we did some poly too. We did poly.
But I love the feel of silicone ink. It's a completely different feel. I know it's designed for poly, but I wish it would be designed across the board for other garments. But silicone inks.
The biggest benefit to silicone inks is what they will give you over a standard plastisol, water-based, or other technologies, is that it gives you a really, really nice feel, slick feel. The inks have incredible stretchability. And what makes them unique to stretchability versus maybe using a plastisol that actually has a stretch additive is that when you stretch a silicone ink, they recover very well. A lot of times what you can do is when you take a plastisol ink and you add a stretch additive, it gives it better stretchability. But what happens is when the garment tries to relax back to the natural state, it doesn't recover all the way. So you'll get some wrinkling. Where with silicones, it's like a rubber band. It has really stretch. But let me kind of back up a little bit and share as well. Typically, the people who normally are going to want to use silicone are most of the folks that are going to use print on 100% polyester. And the reason I say that is that silicone, the attributes of silicone, some of the chemistry, and because it will cure so low, it cures at a lower temperature, is that it gives you some benefit when you print on 100% polyester with the natural chemistry of it that you don't normally see as much dye migration because that product will cure at 260, 270. So naturally, you're curing at a lower temperature. Now, yes, we do have plastisol inks that will work on those type of garments, but what I see silicone doing for people who print on polyester, it's more of a value add print, because I can tell you right now, if you take a silicone print, do the same print with silicone and plastisol, you don't label them what it's been printed with, and you give it to a customer and ask them which print you like the best, probably 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 customers are going to pick the silicone print.
Because of the feel?
Because of the feel.
100%. That's why I like silicone.
Right.
I mean, when we've been going over silicone for a year or more. I love the way silicone feels. That's why I said I wish it could be printed on cotton and other garments.
Right.
But silicone feels awesome.
It does. It has a great feel. The drape is amazing. It's real relaxed. It's not stiff and boardy. And what's unique about it too is that, and I've done some testing on this, let's just say most people who will print silicone or do the same design with plastisol, the same design, they will think that there's less ink going on the silicone by weight, by how much ink is going on the shirt. So what I did is I was curious. I took it in the lab one day years ago, and I just took a white print, used the same image, flash printed the plastisol print, flash printed the silicone print, and I weighed how much ink was going on the garment, exactly the same. But because of the flexibility and the drape of the silicone, it gives you a much better appealing feel to the ink, and the drape's so nice and relaxing. So that's the reason I like to do a blind test, show our end users the blind test, saying, hey, which one do you like best? And then you share them what it is. And then you try to lead them down the path how you could charge more for the garment with this unique, because nobody, really, realistically, not many folks, they're scared of silicone a little bit. Yes, it's an expensive product. I will tell you that. Yes, it does have a catalyst. So when you put the catalyst in the ink, the ink has a shelf life. But at the end of the day, if it gives you better dye migration resistance because you're able to cure at a lower temperature, then you would print. If you get less reject rates using silicone versus plastisol, anytime you have to reprint a job because of migration, you lost all your value there. Now, if it would have worked with silicone out of the gate, now, then you didn't have to reprint it.
So we can definitely attest. You're talking about the stretchability. When we tested this a while back, and I was sitting there trying to rip it apart, the silicone.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
the shirt was stretching so far, it took for a long time for the shirt to come back to its normal state,
Right.
but the silicone just fell back with it.
Yeah.
And I was muscling this thing apart.
Another attribute to silicone, too, is most people don't think about this. It's a thermoset. What I mean by a thermoset, it's not a thermoplast like plastisol. You can take an iron,
Drop it on there.
and drop it on silicone, and it will never remelt.
Yeah.
So plastisol, because it's hot, it'll remelt.
Will it not distort the image of if it's...
Nope, it will not.
No, in
won't
fact,
remelt.
my wife has an iron, and the pad you put it on while it's hot is silicone. And she said, I don't feel right. And I said, well, you've got that muffin pan that's made out of silicone. So its durability is, I can attest from working at Badger.
Right.
The durability is incredible. And I always found it to be an ink perfect for the sports teams and that type of genre. Is because of if it's on a uniform that gets stretched, washed 100 times, you're not going to do anything to the design itself. The shirt's going to degrade well before the print will be around long after we're all off the earth.
And again, that's just a unique attribute to the silicone, where it is a thermoset, not thermoplastic, that won't remelt.
So how does a regular screen printer that maybe is not doing athletic wear, how did they sort of ease this in, or how did they find a market for silicone when they're used to having people print plastisols or soft hands and stuff like that?
In my opinion, they do exactly what I just shared. They actually maybe get some silicone white. We go in there and teach them how to use it, how to print it successfully, how to cure it properly, and then they take those blind prints that were done with plastisol and silicone, and then they share it with their customers saying, hey, which print do you like the best? Let them decide, because their customer is going to drive it if they want to go into that new technology.
I would use it, silicone, if I'm a customer, all day long.
Yeah.
And it's a value add. Again, it's a value add. But end of the day is, we know that the inks, you don't have to use a special emulsion, which is great. It's not like a water base or something else. You can use a standard emulsion because it doesn't have any, it's pretty much 100% solids system. So it doesn't have any solvent in it. So it shouldn't have any negative effects on the emulsion that you're using. But the product costs more. You're going to have some waste because it does have a catalyst. Because once you catalyze it, once you catalyze the ink, and if you seal the lid, it will last for 72 hours.
Yeah. And
So
can I tell them the trick that we were doing at Badger? Is
absolutely.
that fair?
Yeah.
I don't know if ink companies could,
Go ahead.
tell people that, but yeah, we would put it in the fridge overnight. So
Yeah.
if you're working on a job, so that's the trick is put it in the refrigerator. And the other thing is if you leave ink in the screen and it hardens, you almost want it to harden all the way because then you just peel it out. It's the coolest thing to see it, and it's fun to do because it just comes off in one piece.
We actually publish 72 hours once the catalyst is added, but in a refrigerated system, that I'm confident that people that are using that they're getting longer than 72 hours.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But we publish it. We publish it because we never know how somebody's going to use it, so
or
we have
if
to
they
publish.
put too much catalyst in it, then it's going to shorten the life.
Right, absolutely. Typically, we use 3 to 5% by weight of catalyst.
Yeah.
Most customers use 3%. That's all that's required. There's certain customers that will use up to 5% because if they have to pass a certain durability test. End of the day is the customer has to do their own in-use testing on wash, durability, what they think will meet their standard, and they can decide on what catalyst they want to use.
Yeah.
But that's the range we normally recommend, 3 to 5%.
So this might be a hard question to answer, and it's kind of a little question, but Plastisol versus silicone, a one color, decently full chest, any kind of price difference you're going to see? Might be kind of hard to answer, but
It depends on the image. That's the key. So basically, what you want to do is you want to work off of if you're going to do a testing, what you can do is if you want to kind of get a cost difference, what you want to do is create a design, know how many square inches that design is,
Yeah.
and then if you going forward, you will know. Basically, you don't know how much ink it is. You want to know what the ink cost is. Then you want to factor in not just the ink cost, because you're giving a customer something nobody else is giving them.
Yeah.
So as a in-use screen printer, they should be able to charge more per print than a standard Plastisol print.
And it seemed like that we were laying colors directly onto colored garments
Absolutely.
as well. So that's a big factor too. You don't have
underbase.
The white. You're not creating this giant underbase.
Yeah.
Is you're printing direct because of the opacity. So your artwork's a little bit different there, where you're not underbasing like you typically would with the screen printing.
Think of it along as the same line as somebody who's printing numbers in Plastisol. They got a number machine. Well, you can't run an underbase on numbers. So, this Libra silicone system is actually a mixing system. So we offer 16 colorants, pigment concentrates, and you mix it with a base. Now, that system is supported by the IMS 3.0 software. So any customer that is using the Union or Rutland mixing system, all they have to do is let us know that they're going to use silicone, and then we grant them access to that software. We just need to know that, so we can grant them access. But it is a formula. It is supported by the software. So those pigments that we use and the formulation we use are very opaque. So we have customers right now that they don't underbase. They flash print a color, and it gives them really good opacity.
So speaking of the software, and speaking of, you got another thing on the silicone, because I was going to jump over to.
Well, I was going to say when my experience with it, I had the privilege of printing this stuff for a year. A lot of people in the industry never have printed. They're like, hey, there's going to be those camouflage or sublimated that are really, really tough. And I believe you guys had a charcoal-based underbase for those really, really tough bleeders when you just want to be sure. But otherwise, standard poly are good.
And that's a good point. I want to mention anything that's sublimated.
Yeah,
we do have a barrier black.
Yeah,
and it's a part A, part B system where you mix those two together at a certain ratio. Then you add the catalyst, and you do have to underbase sublimated garments because sublimation is a different dyeing process than what happens on a standard garment.
Yeah, because the heat hits it and it goes. But that's a nice option to have in your silicone lineup.
Right.
I enjoyed it.
And there's one more thing I want to add. Anytime you're testing silicone, anytime you're going to play with silicone, there are certain garment manufacturers out there that I actually have seen that have the antimicrobial finishes on them. What will happen sometimes depending upon where that garment's made. And that's one of the variables that we cannot control as an ink manufacturer. I have seen specific garment manufacturers, let's just say it was a black garment, and they printed 24 shirts. 4 out of those 24s, the ink may not even dry. So right away when I saw that years ago, I started looking at the garment. The 4 garments that ink didn't dry on, didn't cure, it was still wet, even though it had catalyst. The other 20 garments were fine. They were made in a different country, so that means it was a different dye lot. So upon further research and working with companies and trying to figure out what's going on here, we learned that with those antimicrobial garments that are being produced, depending upon what they're doing in the dyeing and finishing area, could cause the silicone ink not to potentially dry.
Yeah.
Where we never saw that with Plasol. So I want to say this is because Badger Sport is a very, very loyal and good customer of Avient and Texsource.
Yeah.
They've been buying our products since, I want to say, third quarter of 2018. I will share with you that I promote their garments for this reason. They print silicone on all their garments. And because they control their dyeing and finishing in-house with their manufacturers, and they know how to make their garments where silicone won't have that problem. So a lot of times what happen is I deal with these customers and I share about silicone, but I also want to share with them about some of the failures we've seen with certain garments. So it may seem like a shameless plug, but it's true. We don't have that problem at Badger Sport because they know how to manufacture and dye and finish their garments. We don't have that problem. So a lot of times I recommend these customers that want to do silicone to buy their garments because I know they'll work. The last thing we want to do as an ink manufacturer is have a technology where a customer fails and has problems.
Yeah.
Again, we can control the garments and where they're produced and what's being used on the garments. And the last thing we want to do as an ink manufacturer is to have a customer that has 24 garments and 4 shirts didn't dry because now that garment's ruined. They can't fix that.
Yeah.
So we want to educate our customers and help them,
And Badger, they make a high quality garment.
They make a
You're
great
just
garment.
not paying for the 3 stripes or the swoosh. But I found their testing to be higher than when I worked at Adidas as far as the durability of their garment.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, they control every
That's
aspect of it. So
So-
I see what you're saying there
Yeah.
because most manufacturers are sourcing stuff from all over. They're doing all their own work. So, and it's a lot cheaper. So you can outfit a team cheaper.
And what I do is any customer that is interested in silicone, I make sure they know some of these problems with certain garments. They need to test it, be sure.
Yeah.
Because last thing we do is have customers fail.
Yeah, it's like discharge, the same thing. You
Absolutely,
want
100%.
You want to vet your garments and say, hey, I really like the way this garment discharges.
That's the reason when you changing the subject a little bit about discharge. That's the reason people using water base and they want to do discharge. If they're a contract printer, I always tell them no.
Yeah.
Don't try it because they don't source their own garments.
Yeah.
They're printing the garments that come in their facility. They have no control over what it is. So this time the garment may discharge, but the next time it may not because they're not controlling the garment. Don't go down that path
Yeah.
unless you control the garment. If
Yeah,
you can't
you
control the garment, that's the biggest variable.
Yeah, they throw a tri-blend at you, then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they burn.
Yeah.
Or
they don't discharge.
Yeah.
So speaking of the water base, another style of ink, the Aquarius, which is water base. Customers and printers are also afraid of printing with water base.
Right.
It's as simple as just as plastisol or silicone. They're all kind of simple, just priced differently.
Yeah.
But get your input on water base and the Aquarius brand that we sell
Right.
through Avient.
Right.
The ASI.
Yeah. Well, actually, the Avient brand for water base is Aquarius.
Yep.
And this is kind of funny how it always works. If you go to a customer who always prints water base and you try to get them to try plastisol, they're scared to death of it. They don't want any part of it. But then you take a customer who has always printed plastisol and you want to bring up water base, that makes them scared too. Because
Definitely
you're
afraid
taking
of it.
people out of their comfort zone. And I understand that. But when it comes to water based, one of the first questions I ask any customer if they're interested, I ask them, number one, how big's your dryer? You take a customer who's only got a 4-foot heat chamber, you really don't want to go water-based, because on a low solid system, which means a standard water base or a discharge system, our products is going to need at least a minute and a half. So the proper questioning for myself and any distributor or dealer rep or any customers interested, I want to have that full disclosure up front to know, okay, number one, do I have a big enough dryer that can cure water base? Because if you only got a 4-foot chamber, that means you're going to have to run every garment through the oven twice. And nobody wants to do that. That hurts productivity. But with the Aquarius system, it actually is a mixing system. It is a pigment-based system. So that means you have, I think I have 15 components, color components. They're all pigment concentrates. But what allows us to do with just a set of pigments, we can use standard water base, which is, we consider that using our soft base, Aquarius soft base. And that's just standard water base. That's typically printed on light color garments, whites, pastel shades. That product will not have any opacity. It's very low solid, so it won't have any opacity. So, but it gives you extremely soft hand, really nice printing.
I don't know, but the opacity is still pretty bright from those samples we've seen. It's
a good product. It's a good product, but it's not going to give you the opacity that you will want similar to Plasol. But it will. The soft base is really good. Now, when you get into the discharge, which we use our discharge products, again, your biggest variable, you want to be sure you're using a 100% dischargeable garment, and you want to be sure with the manufacturer you're using that the dye lots are going to be consistent. You want that garment to discharge consistently every time you buy that colorway or whatever you're buying. Yes, there's certain shades of garments that will never discharge well.
Purples.
Kelly green,
Yeah.
royal blue, stuff like that. You know, we understand that. So, but it's a pigment-based system, and we also have a high solid system that actually is going to simulate more opacity similar to Plastisol. But again, the high solids chemistry is a little bit more difficult to print because it's a higher solids system. That means it's got more solids in the ink, which is going to want to dry in the screens faster. So there's a certain protocol you have to set up your press and how you preheat. You need to manage your temperature on your pallets very well to be able to print that product very well.
So you're going to probably be more experienced printers.
More experienced, for sure. If you got somebody starting out water-based, I always suggest starting with low solids. Low solids either using the soft base, which is a transparent ink.
Yeah.
That will be going on whites and pastels, or discharge.
Discharge.
Both of those inks are going to stay very, very open in the screens very well. You'll get very, very good open screen life. And they'll cure it a minute and a half, 90 seconds. You know, dwell time for 90 seconds, 320. Because again, why 90 seconds? Well, it's water-based. You got to have the sufficient enough dwell time in the oven to extract all the water out in the print to get things to cure.
So in our classes, our specialty classes that we teach standard water-based and discharge water-based printing. Mm-hmm. And get your opinion on this. We have a lot of questions from the students asking, hey, can I just discharge the underbase and then print Plastisol on top? Can I just do a discharge white underbase and then put the standard Plastisol on top? Those sort of questions.
We just had a question on YouTube 10 hours ago about this. Can I use your discharge white, the one that you printed, the Texsource, and then print my CMYK on top of it?
I would never, ever recommend taking the Aquarius discharge white, printing it down as an underlay, and printing Plastisol on top of it. The discharge white has a really high pigment load in it. So what happens is, the Plastisol sometimes won't adhere good to the straight discharge white.
But you can use just a base, right?
You can use a clear. But
like I've done this shirt here.
That's correct. You can use a clear. You can use a clear. But the goal, typically, when people want to do that, they want to have bright, vibrant colors.
Yeah.
But they also want to have soft tan. So when you print, we always recommend using discharge, especially the clears or anything you want the maximum opacity or maximum color brightness, 160 mesh. So 156, 158, 160, in that range. So what you want to do is, if you're going to do that and run a clear or a hybrid, or a mixture of a clear and white underneath it.
A little white.
A little white in it, say maybe an 80% clear, 20% discharge white blend.
Yeah.
You always want to print the plastisols on top of it, minimum 230 mesh or higher. Because your goal is to have soft hand. Well,
Yeah.
you're not going to get a soft hand if you print 156 on top of it or low meshes. It's going to make the hand more boardier because the plastisol is not going to be as soft. Higher mesh on your plastisol, but you don't want to have a huge solid amount of plastisol on top of a water-based ink like a 156 or something, because you trap the water and it's harder to cure the water base underneath it.
So would you, in that case, would you sort of flash and try to get that underbase a little bit dry before you go putting your high mesh plastisol on top of it? Would you inline flash that underbase?
On your bigger images, yes.
Yeah.
On your bigger images, I would.
So are you trying to flash the discharge all the way cured, or just partially cured?
I would get it as,
Because you're going to be flashing 2-3 times maybe.
that again, if you're doing, let's just say, depending upon the artwork, there are customers who will run 2 or 3, 4 colors sometimes after a discharge base. After they flash the discharge base, they'll run them wet on wet because you're printing through 230 meshes. So
Yeah.
your wet on wet properties are going to be a lot better because you're laying down so much ink with your so little ink with your plastisol.
Yeah.
So they'll try to print it wet on wet as much as they can. Ideally, when you're running straight water base across the board and you're discharging every color, no matter what color you make, we never recommend
Yeah.
flashing that. It's all
Yeah.
wet on wet. But in the plastisol world, what I have seen, if you get a huge big image and you lay colors on top of it, sometimes it will pick up a little bit too much of the base.
By that time, you might as well discharge all the colors
Right.
to that large image. Just discharge all the 4 colors.
Yeah. The advantages, the disadvantages with discharging all the colors, obviously you're going to have a little bit more waste because once you activate your colors in water base, you're going to have some waste in your colors. That's going to give you the softest hand possible, though,
Yeah, for sure.
because you're going direct to fabric with every color. It's going to give you the softest hand possible. But there's customers out there who don't want to run discharge in every screen, so they do the hybrid method where they run a discharge clear underneath, and then I've seen customers run their colors through 280s and 305s
Yeah.
because they don't need it. Because if the garment discharges really, really well, back to that real natural color, you're essentially printing on a natural color garment.
Yeah. It's almost like a canvas.
That's right.
Yeah. Canvas color.
So, and there's certain garments out there, and how I normally know how good a garment's going to, how I will test a garment to find out how well it discharges. I just take the discharge clear or discharge base,
Yeah.
put the agent in there, and then what I do is I'll play with the ratio of the agent. There's certain garments you only need 4% activator, and it discharges beautifully. So what the advantage of using less activator is that cuts down on the odor, but it also will give your ink a little bit more pop life in the screen. So I'm a big proponent of using less is sometimes more.
Yeah.
You don't need any more than necessary to garment. The garment discharges well. A lot of times I can get away with 4%.
Yeah, and that's what exactly this shirt was. This
Right.
was a test shirt from R&D at Adidas in Indianapolis,
Right.
and this was just how well does this next level
Right.
6210, which has poly in it, how well does it discharge? And you're right, that's exactly what we were doing there. Is you first run clear on it, just discharge base and throw in your powder. And you say, hey, these garments are good. That's where you find out the purples. The purples turn light blue, and you see what does well and what doesn't, and then you can add those to your list.
And that you're correct, but also that's why you test different manufacturers, because you may learn a certain colorway for certain manufacturers may be better than another one.
Yeah,
You don't,
Yeah.
and it's just good to always know that. Test the ones that you know you're going to use, because then, it's best to know that on the front end before you start production.
yeah, absolutely.
And then you also, most of these companies now that are selling dischargeable garments, your major brands, they rate their garments how they discharge.
yeah,
So they have a scale.
yeah.
So, it's easy enough to get that information.
Yeah, we used to just have to keep a running list.
Yeah.
These are the ones that have failed. Do
Right.
not sell these, and these are the good ones. But
So speaking to the drying portion of discharge and it being difficult to get a good cure because of the dryer length, that sort of thing. Texsource caters towards the large customers, the small customers, all the above. And to customers who have smaller dryers, you're not wrong for having to run the shirt through twice. As long as you get that cure, it's just
Right.
you lose production, like you said. Your productivity is way out of the window, but you're not wrong to have to throw it through the dryer twice.
No, you're not wrong. The key for us as an ink manufacturer and as a dealer, we educate the customer and set that expectation for
Yeah.
that smaller dryer, what it's going to take to cure it properly.
So it leads into what's some of the factors of checking your dryer temp, if it's because that's sometimes a big question with some customers, because every dryer is different out there. Their controls or functions, it's all different.
Right.
So what's some ways they can?
And most people, I cannot get over this. Most people think their dryer is the temperature that they're seeing on, where they set it to. And that could be nothing further from the truth.
Right.
What's some ways you can?
Well, first of all, the biggest question we get is that people say, okay, well, where's this ink? Where's the ink cure and for how long? Well, that is a very, very tough question to answer. What happens is, you got a 4-foot oven, you got a 12-foot, 16-foot, whatever it may be. Typically, what I like to see, and unfortunately, I don't see this a lot in a lot of shops, I want to see that shirt stay in the chamber for 45 seconds minimum. Optimum for me for plastisol, a minute. Water base, low solids, minute 30. So what I want to set my belt speed where, and typically how I do it is you can take a shirt, you lay the shirt on the belt. As soon as the shirt enters the chamber, you start your stopwatch. Everybody has a phone now. Your iPhones or whatever has a stopwatch on it. You time that. You get your dwell time down first. You know what your dwell time needs to be, what we recommend. Secondly, you want to check the temperature of the garment. So typically what I've always used, there's people who use ray guns, there's people who use temperature strips, there's other ways people will check it. I am not a fan of ray guns or temperature strips. My favorite way of checking dryer temperatures is the Atkins donut probe. We actually have those donut probes for sale within Avient, or you can go online and you can find dealers in other areas. But to me, that's an invaluable tool. There's so many customers out there that really do not really know for sure where they're really curing their garments. So what I do is whether it's water base, plastisol, whatever, we know the parameters. Standard water, let's just say a standard plastisol, it cures at 320. So what I'll do is I'll print a shirt. I take the donut probe. It has a puck, and it actually has a crosshairs on it. So it has a cord that's 12 or 16 foot long. It hooks into a digital handheld and it reads what the temperature is as the garment's going through the dryer. You lay the puck on the ink film.
Yeah.
When it goes through the oven, you're looking at a digital readout, seeing where your oven's going to peak out. Wherever it peaks out, once you get it, your dryer settings, let's just say, for example, you had your dryer set at 320. All right, you ran it through. Say it peaked out at 300. Well, okay, it didn't get up to 320. So your dryer setting at 320. Naturally, most people will turn their dryer up to 340 and retest. Whenever it reaches the desired temperature on the puck reading to the digital reading, whenever it hits that temperature, I like to be able to count 5 to 10 seconds. I want to see it peak out and hold that temperature 5 to 10 seconds. The reason I say that is we don't know how much ink is being laid on the garment. An ink typically cures from the outside in. And what I mean by that is it starts from the bottom and top and works its way to the middle. It's where an ink cures. The reason I say 5 to 10 seconds is because if someone is curing a garment that's got a 230 mesh of one color, it's going to cure faster. But if you take a white ink and flash print it through a 110, you got a thicker film. You wanted to see it hold at that temperature for 5 to 10 seconds to be sure the entire ink film is cured.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that I see people make mistakes, well, they will test one shirt. When it comes production time,
Yeah.
you want to test the cure of the ink and the garment with a full chamber. You want to set that oven up what you think your full chamber will be like during a run. So say, for example, if you normally have, let's just say if you had in the oven chamber 7 shirts going through at one time. What I will do is I will take the donut probe and put it on the 4th or 5th shirt. That way you got equal amount of garments on both sides. Because I have seen, especially with 100% cotton or even nylon, people don't realize how much moisture nylon has in it. I have seen as much as 14 grams of water in one cotton shirt. People go, how do you know that? I can take a cotton shirt, and people think it's crazy.
Survive in the desert for.
Well, what I do is I can take that cotton shirt. I'll weigh it on a scale. I laid it, say it's an extra large. I laid it on a scale. I wrote down what it weighed. I ran it through the oven. As soon as immediately it came out of the oven, I put it on the scale. Subtract the difference. That tells you how much water was in it.
Yeah, you see reds steaming off a lot.
But it just depends. I mean,
yeah.
So that being said, so you think about that. If you just test one shirt, imagine what you're doing to that dryer temperature when you get a full chamber.
Or
it's going to drop.
Or a sweatshirt. Out of all the jobs that came back uncured in my 30-some years, it's always been black or black fleece, because it seems like it soaks up the heat and your ink doesn't get cured. Those are the ones that always come back.
Well, it's not. Think about the mass of the garment.
Yeah.
They're heavy.
Yeah.
Anything that's heavier, it's got more mass, takes longer to warm up.
Yeah.
It's no different.
Especially when you have 7 going through the dryer. That's going to be
it can
be rough.
I have seen as much on cotton and fleece versus one shirt versus a full chamber, an influx of 30 to 40 degrees of dryer temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people, they just don't know.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't know is because, just like myself, if I've been taught something a certain way my whole life to do something, doesn't mean I'm doing it the right way. You still don't know any better.
Yeah.
And we run into shops and you see it. So you start asking the right questions. And what you want to do is, you don't want to criticize people. You want to educate them and help them say, hey, listen, I want to show you something. Can I show you this? Because I keep a donut probe with me all the time. So it's in my car.
Yeah.
A lot of times I travel with it.
Yeah, you've brought it to
hard to
Texsource
get
several
through.
times, and we've tested with it.
I heard it's very difficult to get through airport security with the donut probe.
I'm
just saying.
Here,
Sir,
on my last few trips, I've had any issue.
Yeah.
So I haven't had any issues. So, but still, I mean, I just,
Well,
they look at it, and I pretty much said, listen, it's a device to measure. The good thing is it doesn't work off lithium batteries, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's just standard 9-volt.
And we've used it several times here at Texsource, testing various different inks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yours that you've brought here.
Yeah, and it works. I mean, again, it's a $400 or $500 investment, but again, you want to be sure your stuff's cured, because if a garment gets out to a customer and they wash them and the ink's washing off or not properly cured, you take the risk of losing a customer.
You got a mess.
Yeah, you lose one job, and that kind of pays for it. And like I said, as a company goes through this maturation process. First, you're printing T-shirts, and it's like you're getting away with murder because you're sending them out there. It's as you grow and your customer base goes into a more, when you're printing for brands and stuff like that, these are the things that you really need to bring in line so that you've got yourself covered. And QC will save you. You can always say these shirts are not cured. Let's run them back through and save the day. It's failing to do the QC on the end of the dryer. That's where would drive me nuts as somebody running a shop. It's like, okay, yeah, you undercured the black sweatshirts again. Everyone knows, but it's the failure of not QCing it, because you can always save a shirt before it goes out the door.
That's right. And on the flip side, when it comes to cure, it's the opposite. Cotton's the opposite of polyester. Polyester heats up very quickly.
Yeah.
So say, for example, I went into a shop and I was just told the customer, I said, what do you know? I mean, when you print, what do you print? He said, cotton, 50/50s, polyester. All right. Can I show you something? So what I did is I took every garment he had and tested them at the current dryer setting. So I got the dwell time set perfect where it needed to be, a minute. And then what I did is I ran each garment, showing how each garment reacted different, how the cotton took more to heat up.
Yeah.
The 50-50 wasn't as bad. Not a fleece, just a standard 50-50. But the polyester, how quick it heated up. And I explained to them why. Hey, listen, if you're going to run a polyester job, what's one of the worst enemies to a polyester ink migrate? Heat. Let's just say you got your dryer set at 320, and it's a standard polyester white, not a low cure poly white, and you had it set for cotton. So now instead of that garment possibly hitting 320, it's hitting 340 or 350. What have you done? You've promoted the dye migration by pulling more dispersed dye out of that garment to make it want to bleed more. So what I do is I try to educate the customer saying, hey, don't speed your dryer up because it still needs to dwell. But if you're running polyester, profile the dryer and say, okay, for polyester, you need to set it at this temperature. So what I did is he bought an eraser board. I have one customer actually, because they print water base, they print poly, plastisol. What they did is they created a sheet, dryer settings per sheet, laminated, it sits by every dryer. So when they know these garments are coming up, they make the change to that setting. Now, they still check for cure. They still run a donut probe. In my opinion, you should check your dryer readings once a day, minimum.
Yeah.
Once a day. There's some customers that are very critical about, I've seen them checking 3 times a day.
Yeah, it's like I said, I think this falls in the QC realm. It falls in the who's running the floor.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things that's sort of overlooked because you're running all day long and nothing's going to be said then. Mm-hmm. It's when something comes back. And migration with the poly, you may not see it till you come in the next day and you're like, oh Lord, these things turn gray on us, the white ink overnight.
Right. And it normally takes a couple of days.
Yeah.
If you're lucky if it happens coming out of the oven, then you notice a problem right away, you can stop.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it sits a couple of days, now you've already printed the job.
Just use the underbase gray and use low cure inks, and you're going to save yourself lots of trouble.
Well, and again, it's what I kind of use the underbase gray. It's one of my favorite sayings.
It's the crutch.
I call it the insurance policy.
Yeah, it's a crutch. It really is.
Listen, if your underbase gray won't stop migration, then that garment's so bad nothing may stop it.
That it was made in Bangladesh.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But again, yes, I get it. Customers do not want to create an extra screen. I understand, but there are situations.
The high dollar garments, it's worth putting the underbase gray on,
right?
And it flash cures quickly.
It does flash very fast,
and it creates a really nice smooth surface for other colors to go on top of. So now, I loved underbase gray.
We do have a new product on the union side, and we've been very, very successful with it. We've competed very well against other competitive products out there. It's a polyester white called Union 1071. It's a low cure poly white. It's very new technology. We've had it out over a year. Very creamy, cures at 270. Really, really good low cure poly white. It's got a super smooth finish. And believe it or not, on 50/50s and tri-blends, it has good fiber mat down.
Okay.
It really is.
So this could almost be like a universal
It
white?
could be. I would never recommend going on cotton because you don't need it for cotton.
Yeah.
But somebody who prints a lot of poly, tri-blends, 50/50s, and they fight migration,
yeah,
it's a good option for them.
But
for 100% polyester, it's really good.
I'll take
and
a
I don't
pint sample.
And I'm not one to talk negative about competition. Never have been. But there's a customer out there that we've done really, really well, competitor we've done really, really well with this product that's very, very popular in the athletic world.
Yeah.
So
I can only imagine who.
So, but it's and you got and Texsource has done really well with it this past year. We've picked up got a lot of good customers using it.
We've sold a lot of the 1071, and we print it during our classes because we've got so many different. We got a hodgepodge different set of garments. We got poly, straw blends, we got all kinds of scrap in there. So we kind of print with the 1071 during our classes.
Yeah, and you've noticed it. It's totally different than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
It's creamy.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah,
a polyester
it's
ink
super
that's kinda-
simple. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
Print's really
poly ink is usually taffy-like.
It's a little bit thicker.
And so I know that lots of shops just want, even if it doesn't matte down good on cotton, most of them want a white that they can use on everything possible. And they're gonna use it. That's we were no different.
Yeah, and it's a premium product. It's not a economy product. Economical. It's premium. It's a premium product, no doubt.
Yeah.
So
Pay for what you get.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's worth. I'm sure it's worth it, especially if it's got a flash cure time.
it's we just fortunate enough to working with a new customer. That's very large customer. That's going to go through probably 80 to 100 gallons a month, and their best comment to us was that it flashes faster and had less after flash tag than what they were using, and they're very happy with it, and we're very fortunate to be able to supply them with the product. So I think we appreciate. They're very grateful they gave us the opportunity.
I think that's all the time we have for today. You got.
We could talk to this guy for this. Could be like the 6-hour marathon show.
I was going to call it the M&M show, Max and Mike show. So I mean, between both you guys,
we've known each other a long time. Mike,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Between both you guys, the amount of knowledge is there is crazy. So it's we could go on forever and on. So Max visits often. So next time we'll get him on some other subjects.
Yeah, I'm happy to join.
We need to get him on the press down there when we're doing something.
That can happen too.
Yeah, I mean, anything you guys want to discuss, or I mean, you ask your customers what they want to talk about. Maybe we get whatever we want to do. I'm happy to help and be a part of it. Appreciate you guys inviting me on.
And Max's personal phone number is 555.
But appreciate you coming on.
Thank you guys very much.
See you.